Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about leadership today. My name is Ravi Rayavaram, so let's get started. Every generation believes its struggles are new, that the pressures it faces are unlike anything before. But the truth is, while the world changes, the dilemmas of leadership remain the same. Over 7,000 years ago, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, a warrior stood frozen. Arjuna, the greatest archer of his time, suddenly found himself lost, torn between duty and emotion, strength and despair. At that moment, he turned to his charioteer, Lord Krishna. What followed was not just guidance for a soldier, but a timeless conversation for humanity, the Bhagavad Gita. Today, we too stand in our own Kurukshetras, not of swords and arrows, but of decisions, responsibilities, and doubts. The choices you as young leaders make will shape not just your future, but the future of many who depend on you. The world keeps inventing new names for old struggles. Think about it. We talk about leadership now with words like agility, empathy, and resilience. These words are vital, and the demands on today's workforce are more complex than ever before. Now, for a long time, the models we have learned have carried a distinct Western bias. Ideas of individualism and competitive drive have shaped how leadership is practiced, taught, and even admired. But for a country as layered and diverse as India, now these leadership models don't always resonate with our cultural DNA. India is at a pivotal moment. There's ambition, there's momentum, and above all, there's passion. But there's also an invitation, an opportunity to build a uniquely Indian leadership model. One that borrows the best of global thinking, but is ultimately grounded in the values that feel very native to us. In the relentless pace of today's professional world, young professionals like you face mounting expectations both from themselves and others. Some of the most common pitfalls we see today are overworking and burnout, neglecting personal development and relationships, not setting boundaries, rushing through your career progression. We often think of karma as simply a chain of cause and effect. But the true essence of Karma Yoga is about more than just action and its reaction. It's about performing our duties with a spirit of detachment, integrity, and joy. Now, this isn't about ignoring outcomes, it's about not being enslaved by them. It's about finding fulfillment in the process, not just the result. It's about building a uniquely Indian leadership model that is both powerful and purposeful. Now, these principles aren't just for seasoned leaders. They are for the next generation, for those still in school, still figuring out who they want to be. When young minds are introduced to ideas like conscious action, clarity without chaos, detachment without apathy, and strength without dominance, they grow up differently. They lead differently. Let's go back by about 7,000 years. The Bhagavad Gita, a timeless and revered text, opens against the vast expanse of the Kurukshetra battleground. It was a time when families had turned adversaries. The Pandavas and the Kauravas, unable to find a compromise, stood arrayed in full battle formation. A staggering share of the world's population at that time, approximately about 3.9 million soldiers, was poised to fight on that single battlefield. It was a conflict unparalleled in scale and significance. Amidst this impending chaos, a conversation began. A dialogue between Arjuna and his charioteer Lord Krishna that would resonate across time. And this is where the Bhagavad Gita offers something truly powerful, rooted in duty or dharma, self-awareness, and detachment from outcomes. The Gita doesn't speak to power, it speaks to purpose. While there are many leadership lessons that one can derive, I've chosen about 5. Now allow me to describe them. Now the first lesson, do not be partial, practice equality. Now let me tell you a story from the Bhagavad Gita. The late Dhritarashtra's blindness in judgment. Let's start with a lesson about fairness, impartiality, and the dangers of bias through the story of Dhritarashtra, the blind king of Hastinapura. When Dhritarashtra's younger brother, Pandu, abdicated the throne, Dhritarashtra naturally became the king because he was his brother. As a ruler, he was expected to govern with wisdom and fairness. But there was one weakness: his deep attachment to his own sons, especially Duryodhana. Duryodhana was ambitious but dangerously selfish. Despite the rightful claim of the Pandavas to their kingdom, Dhritarashtra would not intervene. His favoritism blinded him to his duty. This partiality wasn't because he was physically blind. Rather, it was a blindness of judgment, a failure to see what was right, what was dharma or righteous duty. This failure sowed the seeds of conflict, leading to the devastating Kurukshetra war that destroyed his entire family, his kingdom, and ultimately his peace. Now there is a verse from the Bhagavad Gita that I want to quote here that captures this moment perfectly. It goes, Dharma kshetre Kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakah pandavaschaiva kim kurvata sanjaya. What a fantastic first stanza of the Bhagavad Gita. It means, tell me, O Sanjaya, what is happening between my sons and sons of Pandu in the land of Dharma, Kurukshetra. Now, on the surface, it's a very simple question about battle. But the deeper lesson is clear. When leaders allow personal biases, like his love for his sons, to cloud their judgment, the consequences are tragic. Now, this story is not just history, it's a warning for today's organizations and leaders. When leaders play favorites, prioritizing some over others based on personal preference rather than merit or fairness, they create a culture of inequality. This breeds division, resentment, and ultimately leads to failure. Let me give you a real-life example from post-independence India to illustrate leadership about impartiality. During the India-Pakistan War of 1965, Flight Lieutenant K.C. Karyappa son of the legendary Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa, was shot down in enemy territory and taken captive. When Pakistan's army chief, the then Field Marshal Ayub Khan, who had once served under Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa under the British Indian Army, learned about this capture of Flight Lieutenant K.C. Cariappa, he reached out to Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa for a special favor. He said, "I will release your son if you so seek it." Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa said, "I will not seek anything for my son that I cannot secure for any other Indian soldier. He is no longer my son. He is the son of India. Look after all of them well. They are all my sons." Now, this powerful statement perfectly demonstrates leadership without partiality. A leadership that treats everyone equally, regardless of personal ties. It upholds the highest traditions and strengthens the unity and morale of the entire force, the Indian Army. Now to my second lesson, building a common purpose. Here's a story again from the Mahabharata. Duryodhana struggled to inspire a united cause. Despite having some of the greatest warriors, what Duryodhana lacked was true loyalty and unity. His army had 11 Akshohini Senas, and it was bigger than the Pandavas' army, which had only 7. However, his troops were fragmented, pulled by personal interests and shallow promises. Now contrast this with the Pandavas. Their army was united by a single powerful purpose: restoring dharma, the cosmic order of justice. Each soldier in the Pandava army was part of a collective vision that made them greater than the sum of their parts. Now, Duryodhana's manipulation and mistrust led to a demotivated team that ultimately weakened his army's resolve. Once again, here is a shloka that reflects Duryodhana's mindset. Anye cha bahava shura madhartye tyakta jivitaha nana shastra praharanaha sarve yuddha visharadaha. The translation goes like this: equipped with the best weaponry, there are several other brave warriors ready to sacrifice their lives for my sake. That's what Duryodhana says. Now, Duryodhana's words here are a double-edged sword. They convey both a sense of immense pride and a lack of shared goal. In the absence of a common purpose, teams are fragmented and pursue individual goals. Once again, here's a real life lesson. And this is of Dr. Verghese Kurian, the creator of Amul, again with a core purpose. Dr. Verghese Kurian's creation, Amul, was founded in the 1940s. In the 1940s, farmers in Gujarat faced exploitation by middlemen and lost control over their own produce. Dr. Kurian inspired a cooperative movement where farmers became owners, ensuring that they captured the value chain from production to distribution. By setting up a modern dairy technology and training leaders, he launched an initiative that transformed India into the world's largest milk producer, empowering millions of rural families. Amul today stands as a testament to how a purpose-driven organization can succeed financially and socially. Now let's get to lesson 3. Beware of past successes. Now here is a very interesting story of Arjuna's emotional breakdown. again from the Mahabharata and the war. Although a master archer, Arjuna suddenly found himself overwhelmed, not by lack of skill, but by a moral and emotional crisis. Seeing beloved friends, family, and teachers on the opposite side, he felt paralyzed, overwhelmed by the cost of victory. He told Lord Krishna, his guide, about his shaking limbs, dry mouth, and racing mind. He could no longer rationalize fighting a war that would bring destruction upon his own kin. This moment captures a profound leadership challenge. Success in the past does not prepare you for unknown complex challenges ahead. And this is exemplified by the Gita verse. Drishtvevam swajanam Krishna yuyutsum samupastitam sidanti mamagatrani mukham cha parishusyati vepayuscha sharire me romahasrasya jayate gandivam sramsate hastat vakchaiva paridahyate. He says, my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning all over. I am unable to stand. Arjuna had trained for years. He had mastered his weapons and learnt the finer details of fighting wars. Yet, he was caught off guard when presented with an unknown variable. His breakdown is a fine example of what happens when leaders rely on past success. This brings us to the curse of past success. Past achievements can be seductive. They often breed complacency and overconfidence. Leaders who cling too much to the past and assume they know it all open the door to failure. Mental preparedness and humility are just as crucial as skills and strategy. Now here's a real life scenario. Netflix, a shining example of overcoming this trap. Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix. After revolutionizing home entertainment with DVD mail subscriptions, he did not rest. Hastings anticipated the future was digital and shifted Netflix towards streaming, a very risky proposition at that time. He disrupted the very success he had built by moving fast, creating original content, and evolving beyond the mere media distributor. Netflix today is a global powerhouse in entertainment. Hastings once famously said, companies rarely die from moving too fast, and they frequently die from moving too slow. This wisdom underscores the need for leaders to remain humble and agile, constantly evolving without resting on past laurels. With this, we come to lesson 4. Always operate with humility. Now, once again, here's a story of Arjuna's moment of humility in the middle of the Kurukshetra war. Arjuna, the greatest warrior of his time, found himself frozen with doubt and vulnerability on the battlefield. The thought of fighting against his own people haunted him, clouding his mind and shaking his confidence. In that moment of crisis, rather than succumbing to arrogance or fear, Arjuna did something remarkable. He displayed humility. He surrendered to Lord Krishna, not as someone defeated, but as a student seeking wisdom and clarity. Here's the Gita verse which demonstrates this. Karpanya doshopahata svabhavaha prachhami tvam dharma sammuda chetaha yachreyam syan nischintam bruhitan me shishyastheham shadhimam tvam prapanna. The meaning: my nature is overcome by weakness. My mind is confused about what I should do. I entreat you to let me be your disciple. I surrender myself to you. Please show me the path that is good for me. Humility as a leadership principle is often undervalued. In today's cutthroat competitive world, humility is often misunderstood as a lack of aggression or even a weakness. But real humility, like Arjuna's, is a strength. It sharpens self-awareness, opens one's mind to learning, and helps develop wisdom. While arrogance blinds leaders to their own flaws, humility allows them to absorb feedback, empathize, and grow. Duryodhana's downfall came in part because he never acknowledged his mistake. Arjuna, in contrast, sought counsel when he faced an emotional turmoil. Humble leaders are compassionate and deeply aware of their team's needs. They respect different perspectives and build trust within their organizations. Again, here is a great real-life scenario. One of Mr. Ratan Tata, the ex-chairman of the Tata Group. Born into privilege, Mr. Ratan Tata could have ruled with superiority. Instead, he dedicated himself to working for the greater good. His leadership was defined by respect, empathy, and integrity, values he instilled in the entire Tata organization. He frequently disregarded hierarchical barriers, whether sitting next to his driver or interacting directly with workers on the shop floor, always wearing the same safety gear to signal solidarity. When the Tata Nano project failed, he publicly took responsibility. After the tragic 26/11 terror attacks, he personally visited the families of all those affected, irrespective of their position in the company. Now, this humility and sincerity earned the Tata Group immense respect across the world and now stands as a beacon for leaders everywhere. Let's come to lesson 5. Leadership is about sacrifice. Now here, let me talk to you about the sacrifice of Lord Krishna himself. In the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna stands out as the ultimate example of selflessness and sacrifice. Though offered exalted positions of power, Lord Krishna chose to serve humbly as Arjuna's charioteer during the Kurukshetra war. This was no mere act of obedience or convenience. He placed the greater good and the vision of restoring justice far above any personal gain. By giving up his ego and comfort, Lord Krishna demonstrates how true leadership is about serving a cause bigger than oneself. His dedication, wisdom, humility, and devotion are the essence of sacrifice. Here is the Gita verse which exemplifies this. Sankalpa prabhavan kamam styaktva sarvan sheshataha manasaivendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. It says, renounce completely all cravings arising from desires and restrain the senses with the mind. When the mind is fixed on the self, one is freed from all thoughts. Now, sacrifice in leadership is about transcending the ego and embracing a vision that uplifts others. It is the path to enduring influence and fulfillment. Now let's look at some real life scenarios. And here I'm going to talk about the awardees of the Paramveer Chakra. Let me share some inspiring real life examples from Indian history. Heroes that were awarded the Paramveer Chakra, India's highest military honor for bravery, many of them posthumously. Their leadership was the epitome of sacrifice. First, Captain Manoj Kumar Pandey. He boldly declared in his service selection board interview, "I want to win the Paramveer Chakra." In the Battle of Kalubar, despite severe wounds, he led from the front, capturing enemy bunkers in a hand-to-hand combat. Even after being fatally shot, his last words, "Na chodnu," meaning "don't leave them," inspired his troops forward. Second, Grenadier Yogendra Singh Yadav. He faced the daunting task of scaling a steep, snowy cliff during the Tiger Hill capture of the Kargil War. Despite multiple bullet wounds, grenade injuries, and a broken arm, he led his team, destroyed enemy posts, and kept fighting relentlessly. Number 3 on the list, Rifleman Sanjay Kumar. Facing intense enemy fire at point 4875, charged an enemy bunker, killed intruders in close combat, and turned the captured enemy machine gun against the retreating enemy. His courage energized his team to secure the target. Finally, and not the least, Captain Vikram Batra. He became a legend with his inspiring motto, "Ye dil mange more." During a fierce battle, after rescuing a wounded officer under fire, he was fatally shot while covering his team. His sacrifice turned the tide of battle, inspiring troops to victory. As we reflect on these stories and verses, one truth stands out. Leadership is not about power. It's about purpose. It is about rising above personal bias, uniting people behind a shared vision, learning from setbacks, embracing humility, and above all, being willing to sacrifice for the greater good. The Bhagavad Gita reminds us that real leadership is less about the throne and more about duty, less about titles and more about service. If we can carry these lessons into our organizations, our classrooms, and our daily lives, then we will not only build better leaders, we will build a culture of wisdom and a leadership that is led by wisdom. A leadership that does not merely chase success, but sustains it with values. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all, that the way forward often begins by returning to timeless truths we already hold within us. Thank you.